Is this working? Great. Well, it is good to be here this morning. I want to start off with a question. And this requires participation. It's not a rhetorical question. What is your favorite book of the Bible? Wow, I did not expect a unanimous answer by all of y'all. And what luck that you all picked what I am going to talk about. That's right, I'm talking about Habakkuk. That's what y'all said, right? Okay, good. So, if you're not familiar, which I'm assuming you're not, it is in the Old Testament. It is near the end-ish. And really, I picked it because I just saw it and thought, that's a weird name. And figured, might as well talk about it. So, first, let's start with a little bit of background. The story is about this prophet, Habakkuk, however you pronounce it. And this is in the area of Judah, and the Babylonians are a threat at the moment. If we know anything about Israel and Judah in the Old Testament, it's that they had a on-again, off-again relationship with God. This is kind of in the off-again section, you could say. They weren't the most evil that they had been, but they weren't doing great. And this prophet, Habakkuk, he had some complaints, some concerns, some criticisms, and some questions for God. And I feel like with everything, it answers a question that I think a lot of people have. Why does God allow bad things to happen? And God provides a response to Habakkuk that answers that question for us. The Babylonians were not good people. They did a lot of evil things. And I kind of find it funny that, just, 100 or so years before this, maybe 200, the book of Jonah was written, and that was Jonah being sent to save the Assyrians. I don't know the scale, don't know if the Assyrians were better or worse or what, and why they would be deemed savable, and the Babylonians were, I don't know. It's all complicated, but God does provide an answer as to why the Babylonians were being used. So today we're going to read the entirety of it. Starting Habakkuk 1, the prophecy that Habakkuk the prophet received. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralyzed, and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that the justice is perverted. Now, in this time, they're going through rough patches. They're not thriving. And then they see the Babylonians that they are prosperous. They have everything going for them, except for, God. But they are pagan worshipers. They are committing crimes. They are plundering and pillaging and doing all these sorts of things, and they seem to be rewarded for it. And that is what Habakkuk is raising. Why is this allowed? He's seeing the poverty, he is seeing the struggles among the people of Judah, and then he sees the Babylonian Empire on the other side, and they're doing so well off, and he's wondering, how is this just? The Lord responds. This is in verse 5. Look at the nations and watch, and be utterly amazed, for I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who sweep across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are a feared and dreaded people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry gallops headlong. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle, swooping to devour. They all come intent on violence. Their hordes advance like a desert wind and gather prisoners like sand. They mock kings and scoff at rulers. They laugh at all fortified cities. By building earthen ramps, they capture them. Then they sweep past like the wind and go on. Guilty people whose own strength is their God. So they worship their own strength here. They are an empire, a force to be reckoned with, and it's described here that they go from city to city, taking everything that they can, all natural resources, all people, and then they just leave. And this is God basically saying, yeah, that's going to happen. All that's happening now, you're not going to believe what I'm going to use these people for, even if I told you. Habakkuk then brings upon a second complaint. This is in verse 12. Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You, my rock, have ordained them to punish. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. When they do not tolerate the treacherous, why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? You have made people like the fish in the sea, like the sea creatures that have no ruler. The wicked foes pulls all of them up with hooks. He catches them in his net. He gathers them up in his dragnet. And so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices his net and burns incense into his dragnet. For by his net he lives in luxury and enjoys the choicest food. Is he to keep on emptying his net, destroying nations without mercy? So he's basically saying, how long is this going to go on? Is this just going to happen forever? When will this stop? When will they face their judgment? Or are they just going to keep on gathering everybody, swallowing up nations, taking everything and facing no repercussions? In chapter 2, verse 1, Habakkuk says, I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what he will say to me and what answer I am to give to this complaint. The Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on my tablets, so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. See, the enemy is puffed up. His desires are not upright. But the righteous person will live by his faithfulness. Indeed, wine betrays him. He is arrogant and never at rest, because he is greedy as the grave, and like death is never satisfied. He gathers to himself all the nations and takes captives all the peoples. Will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn, saying, "Woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion. How long must this go on? Will not your creditors suddenly arise? Will they not wake up and make you tremble? Then you will become their prey. Because you have plundered many nations, the people who are left will plunder you. For you have shed human blood. You have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Woe to him who builds his house by unjust gain, setting his nest on high to escape the clutches of ruin. You have plotted the ruin of many peoples, shaming your own house and forfeiting your life. The stones of the wall will cry out, and the beams of the woodwork will echo it. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and establishes a town by injustice. Has the Lord Almighty not determined that the people's labor is only fuel for the fire, that the nations exhaust themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. So this is basically him answering his complaint by saying, look, yes, there's injustice. There's been injustice before. There's not going to stop being injustice. But really, here in verse 14, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. That is God saying it's all part of his plan. He knows what he's doing. And that this is all for him, and that he is going to do what is right. And it basically sets up the conditions of Jesus returning. Or Jesus coming and then returning, In verse 15, woe to him who gives drink to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskin until they are drunk, so that you can gaze on their naked bodies. You will be filled with shame instead of glory. Now it is your turn. Drink and let your nakedness be exposed. The cup from the Lord's right hand is coming around to you, and disgrace will cover your glory. The violence you have done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and your destruction of animals will terrify you. For you have shed human blood, you have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Of what value is an idol carved by a craftsman, or an image that teaches lies? For the one who makes it trusts in his own creation. He makes idols that cannot speak. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life, or to lifeless stone, wake up. Can it give guidance? It is covered with gold and silver. There is no breath in it. The Lord in his holy temple, let all the earth be silent before him. So, he is basically telling the people, or telling Habakkuk to spread this, send it out, and telling them that Judah's not innocent in this. They've done wrong in the past. They have to be corrected. And God is going to use the Babylonians to right things. Also, it points to the greater message of that God's not really worried about injustice on earth. His whole master plan is for us in the afterlife. The Babylonians will be judged. They're going to be judged for their wrongdoings when Judgment Day comes. But he is trying to set the groundwork and set everything up for Judah and Israel and his people to still be saved. Habakkuk finishes in chapter 3 by singing praises to God and trusting in his divine power and his judgment. We might not understand why God is doing things. And I'm not super satisfied with the answer of that some people give when, why does bad things happen, of just, there must be a reason. It's all part of God's master plan. But that's kind of it. These things happen for a reason. And really, we just can't comprehend it. So let's finish with chapter 3. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet on whatever that word is. Shigionath? I don't know. Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His glory covers the heaven, and his praise filled the earth. His splendor was like the sunrise. Rays flashed from his hand where his powers were hidden. Plague went before him. Pestilence followed his steps. He stood and shook the earth. He looked and made nations tremble. The ancient mountains crumbled and the age-old hills collapsed. But he marches on forever. I saw the tenants of Cushan in distress, the dwellings of Midian in anguish. Were you angry with the rivers, Lord? Was your wrath against the streams? Did you rage against the sea when you rode your horses and chariots to victory? You uncovered your bow. You called for many arrows. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and writhed. The torrents of water swept by. The deep roared and lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in your heavens, and the glint of your arrows flew by. At the lightning of your flashing spear, in wrath you strode through the earth, and in anger you threshed the nations. You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of the land of the wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. With his own spear you pierced his head when his warriors stormed out to scatter us. Loathing as though about to devour the wretched who were hiding in. You trampled the sea with your horses, churning the great waters. I heard and my heart pounded. My lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones and my legs trembled. Yet I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in this pen and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. This is him hearing God's response, being told that there's nothing that can be done, that God will use the Babylonians to crush Judah so that good things can happen in the future. And this is Habakkuk responding, saying, Lord, I trust your judgment. I see what's going on around. I don't like it, but I'm going to accept it. I trust your greater judgment. I trust the plan that you have for us, and putting his faith in God. We might not understand why bad things happen, but we need to trust that there's a bigger work at play. And there's no greater example than us not understanding these injustices or whatever may happen than what Jesus had to go through. The great plan that God came up with involves sending his own son to die for us. God himself faced injustice on this earth. We don't know why, and we never will. It's just part of the bigger plan. That's all I got.